Hey, we're live again, Waterfed Wednesday here at Tucker. I am Shawn Gavin, your host, and I'm here with Jay Hanna.
How's it going?
How's it going? Who's with DroneWash Plus. So welcome to Waterfed Wednesday, where we go beyond the bucket and dive into the world of waterfed cleaning and answer your questions about equipment, our business, and our goal of helping cleaners worldwide. So Jay is my guest today. Hope everybody's doing well. It's beautiful here. Weather's nice.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yep, absolutely. So Jay is with DroneWash Plus. DroneWash Plus, correct?
That's it.
So Jay, tell us, how did you get into drone cleaning? You're cleaning buildings, primarily glass with drones. How'd you get into all that?
I think it's like a lot of people. I was working a 9-to-5 job, stuck in a cubicle, and was just about done with that after, a decade of working for somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
My background's in marketing, and I picked up a drone and just fell in love with it. And I thought to myself, maybe I can market myself and build a business. And I did. And it was actually a real estate photography company. Company's called Jeeves Drones. We do real estate photography, inspections, all sorts of stuff with drones. And then I heard about people using drones to clean buildings. They've been doing it for a while. And I did some research and found out, man, this is really cool. This looks like this could be a viable business. There was nobody doing it in Colorado. And I said, let's go. We're going to be the first ones to do it.
Very cool.
Yep.
Very cool. All right. We've got some comments rolling in. Hey guys, from Instagram, from our guys, Ontario Exterior Maintenance. Hey, what's up? Thanks for tuning in.
How's it going?
So some questions. I think there's a lot of like top level questions people have about the idea about cleaning with drones, right? As window cleaners, we're used to like face to glass or getting a water-fed pole up there and the brushes on the glass and those kinds of things. So let's look at some top questions you get. Number one top question as a drone cleaning company: how can you dry windows spot-free with a touchless cleaning process? So no agitation, right?
That's right. Yeah, this is a funny question. It doesn't matter who you are. This is the first question that comes to mind when you see the drone cleaning window is how do you squeegee it clean? And everybody, when you think of window cleaning, you think of a squeegee.
Yeah.
Most people that aren't in the industry. So that's the number one question we get. But the reality is we have this technology in our lives every day, right? A touchless glass cleaning. You think your dishwasher, how does that get your glasses clean? Now, everybody's got their friend, and you go to their house and their glasses are disgusting. But most of the time, your glasses come out pretty clean. Well, how is that? And it's a touchless system. So, and then you think about car washes.
Sure.
Same technology. So the reality is deionization, filtered water, super clean water. It air dries, spot free.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Now, with drones, obviously, you're able to reach much higher than we are with water-fed poles, right? Maybe 5 stories or so is kind of my personal advice for people that are looking for a practical answer of how high can I clean? 45, 50 feet is always my go-to. How high are you able to effectively clean with your drones?
Man, there's guys out there that are doing 20, 30-story buildings. There's cowboys out there that are flying drones off of roofs and then flying down a building to get some extra height, because the only limitation is the weight of the drone.
Okay.
The drones can go up to 400 feet,
Wow.
according to the FAA. Practically, that's not really a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
For us, the way that I look at it is up to 10 stories. I can do that in my sleep. 15 stories requires a little bit more planning. You got to be a little bit more cautious. 20 stories is where I'm kind of pushing the limit of comfort, practicality, and also, can I do a good job at this height?
Yeah.
So I like to say 15 stories is kind of the average building that I'd be looking at.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's quite a lot of property around here, that's for sure.
Totally.
What's up, Jared Swan, my buddy out in Florida? Thanks for tuning in. And Mason. What's up, Mason?
What's up, Mason?
Mason's a local guy here to us too, right? Very cool. Thanks for tuning in, guys. How does the quality compare to manual cleaning with agitation?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a tough one. The quality is very similar to a water-fed pole. So you're using a very similar process, but you don't have agitation. So the mineral stains, if the reality is if the glass is in bad shape, there's only so much you can do. If the glass has minerals that are baked into it, you're not going to be able to touch that. Bird poop, things like that, we do a really good job on. In general, I say we're about 90% compared to manual cleaning. Or water-fed pole, about 90 to 95%.
Okay, sure. So really good when you're talking about places you can't access without being unsafe or in general, right?
Yep.
Yeah, very cool. We got some feedback here from Jared. Never thought about that. 20 to 30 stories.
Send it.
Dropping the lines from the roof. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, there's guys out there that are, flying drones off of lifts, that are setting up these crazy pulley systems. They're getting really creative.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah. Okay, so let's see. We got a couple more questions here. My buddy Manuel, what's up? Hey, man. What is the water consumption? So can you get into like gallons per minute? Not super technical, but these things are powered by pressure washers generally, right?
Yep.
So what are we looking at in terms of like PSI and gallons per minute?
So it's all powered off the equipment on the ground. I mean, what kind of pressure washer you got? That's kind of what you're sending up.
Mm-hmm.
I'm using 8 gallons per minute. The higher up you get, of course, the less pressure you're gonna have.
Mm-hmm.
But about 8 gallons per minute. We've got a 200-gallon pure water tank that we run with, and that's usually enough to get us through a full job.
Mm-hmm.
So the water consumption's really, you're not using that much water, especially compared to like pressure washing sidewalks and things like that. Yeah.
Okay. But quite a bit more than a water-fed pole, Manuel.
Oh yeah.
Definitely a pressure washing application in terms of delivery.
Yeah.
Let's see what else. Who are your ideal customers in terms of when it comes to drone cleaning? Maybe it's the taller application that's out of the reach of the Tucker pole. Maybe it's something else, but what is your kind of sweet spot when it comes to the ideal customer?
Yeah. So of course our business is different than other businesses. Everybody kind of has their target audience and, the type of industry they're used to working in. For me, commercial buildings, we're going after hospitals, we're going after hotels, large office buildings. Apartment buildings can be tricky, but commercial buildings all day. And then for us, our business model too is we're really interested in partnering with window cleaning companies that don't have the capabilities to do 4 stories up or higher than their water-fed pole, their Tucker pole goes. We clean those taller floors and then leave the rest of the bottom to them. Is kind of our business model.
Nice. Good collaboration.
Yeah.
Got a question here from Instagram. I'm not sure exactly what they mean. Greetings from London, UK. Interesting topic. How often can clean a building in a year, for example?
As often as they'll pay for.
Some more. Yeah, as I'll be back every day, right? For regular customers, like 2x, 3x, 4x a year.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no real limitation to that, right? I mean, it really, I think, comes down to how often they're willing to pay for it. In England, for instance, it's interesting because a lot of the window cleaning accounts are far more frequent than in the US.
Are they?
Yeah, the windows over there are cleaned a lot more often. So I think that's kind of where his head's going. But
Jealous.
Let us know if that's not what you're looking for, and we'll get you some more feedback. What trends are you seeing in the exterior cleaning industry right now, whether it's drone application or otherwise?
Yeah, I mean, with the drone, that's kind of my world, so that's what I'll speak to. The big innovations with the drone cleaning right now is going to be battery-powered pumps. For soft washing, that's going to be coming soon. And then, of course, AI. AI is absolutely everything. So everybody wants AI on. It doesn't matter what you're doing, right? You could be sitting on the toilet. How can we make this better with AI?
Yeah, exactly.
They're doing the same thing with drones. So the software is going to be the biggest thing to change and innovate the drone cleaning industry.
Very cool.
Yep.
Yeah, I think, he's saying here, usually every 6 weeks they're cleaning in England. That's a lot more.
Man, we gotta move to England.
Now they're cleaning a lot more often, but they're making a lot less per cleaning too. So you got to think, that repetitive application, they're not getting nearly the same because they're going all the time. I remember when I had my cleaning business and I went from traditional work to Tucker pole stuff, and it was like, well, now you can clean a lot quicker. I think we should pay you less. It's like, I'm not sure I understand, but you have to get creative, right?
Yeah.
It's like, what's your budget? Maybe I'll just come back every 3 months instead of every 6 months, right? You still end up generally making the same amount off the account over the course of the year because you tend to discount for frequency, right?
Right.
So let's see, what else do we have here? What is the biggest challenge you've overcome with drone cleaning?
Yeah, there's a few. I mean, the biggest one is technique. You got to screw some windows up, not breaking them, but you got to do a bad job in order to know how to do
trial
this.
and error. Sure.
Technique is everything when it comes to drone cleaning. So figuring out how do you actually clean a window without leaving a bunch of runs. That's a big one. How do you deal with, bird poop? What can you clean? What can't you clean? And setting expectations with the customer has been a big challenge. But ultimately, the biggest thing has been getting the right combination of pressure, filtration, getting the right equipment. What type of filters should I be using? And chemicals. What chemicals am I supposed to use?
Yeah, even like, just the nozzles, right? Like you think about regular pressure washing, you got 40 degree, you got 0, you got all the other, we just had something pop up on the screen here. You've got all the different tips that you can put in these things. So I would imagine just that right there, right? Foaming nozzles, whatever the case may be, all those things are kind of tricks to the trade, right?
That's right.
Yeah. So how has the technology changed the way commercial windows and solar panels are maintained, in your opinion?
Right. Well, commercial windows, let's see, what's the question again?
How has technology changed the way commercial windows and solar panels are maintained?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, when I first started the company, when we first came out, everybody was like, is this replacing window cleaning? And there was a lot of people, I think, that were just really against drone cleaning. Now I think people kind of see it's just another tool for your toolbox.
Sure.
So, you can clean areas you couldn't clean before. You can clean a different quality, a different level of cleanliness. How before there was no option to just do like a partial clean, or if you clean glass with a squeegee, there's only one way to do it. Well, with the drone, there's 10 different ways, and I can get the cost down quite a bit depending on the technique that I use.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That may not make a lot of sense, but so it adds a whole different tool for people to use.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think the idea of being able to do, you think about like a 10-story building, or even, I've seen, I think it was you guys that were doing like the outside of the football stadium, right? Yeah. That's just a certain section, right, where access might have been an issue. So you come in and do pinpoint precise work rather than, okay, we got to get to the roof, so we might as well work from the top down if we're hanging from a rope, right? So just a different approach to the way you can access and what you would access, and your customers might have an interest in you accessing.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of my favorite topics because it's really comes down to where does this like fall into this industry and what problem is it solving? And we get calls from people that have an area, maybe it's one specific area on their building they've never cleaned. It's just never been cleaned. We get calls from people that don't have anchors and there's no way to clean their entire building and their windows are just trash.
Sure.
Right. So there's so many different ways to look at this technology. The other cool thing too that I like to, going back to that touchless car wash kind of example, is it's almost like running a building through a car wash, whereas before is a very manual, detailed process. Now you can do a touchless clean of a building. Yeah, the quality is not quite as good, but it's faster.
Yeah, and it's safer, and you have access in general, right? Yeah. A lot of those times where you can't even get to it is the big benefit.
That is.
Cody, one of our guys in Texas, says downstreaming, right? So is the way that you're delivering via the pressure washer the same as the downstreaming process? You familiar with downstreaming in the pressure washing world?
So you've either got upstreaming or downstreaming. It depends on what you're doing. We have a soft wash pump and we also have a pressure washer. When we're soft washing, we're upstreaming. Those pumps are designed to handle the chemicals a little bit better than our pressure washer. When we're using our pressure washer, we're downstreaming.
Very cool. Yeah. Very cool. And then when it comes to, you touched on earlier about getting ultra pure water, right? 0 parts per million. What is your purification setup like today? Is it the same as what you started with? Have you tweaked it? I mean, what are you guys running today for purification?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of why we're here, and the relationship we've built with you guys using your products. Early on, we had a 4-stage system using kind of like a residential setup. And we found out it was a little underpowered for what we're doing. So we need something a little bit more industrial kind of get a little bit more water flow.
Mm-hmm.
So now what we're using is we still have our sediment filters. So we have a sediment filter, a carbon filter, just to kind of filter out any of the larger minerals or whatever's in the water. And then we're using the large cubic foot DI tanks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Volume.
So,
Yeah. Lots of volume.
Yeah.
You know, I'm seeing a trend in that too, right? Because really, when you look at the traditional window cleaner that's getting into using a water-fed pole and a purification system, the mobile carts are typically the application, and it's a multi-stage system, right? So you got a small pre-filter, you've got an RO membrane, and then you've got a small DI filter. And I think the reason the industry went that way is not necessarily that that's the best setup,
right?
But because it's easy to move around
and easier to maintain.
Yeah.
And, you know, so we still have that system, and we use that for water-fed, you know, cleaning
traditional
as
type
well.
work with a water-fed pole. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was much easier to maintain, but
Mhm.
with the DI resin, we get a little bit more legs out of it, but it's not as easy to maintain and swap out the filters. So.
Yeah. And if you think about just like from a practical standpoint, the DI tanks, the full 1 cubic foot DI tanks, when they're full of water, they're so heavy. So how are you getting it around? And it does have a lower price point in terms of cost of maintenance in an RO system, but when you want volumes of water, those full-size DI tanks are the way to go with these setups.
Yeah, and we're cranking, so
yeah,
we're able to get a lot of output from that.
Nice. Jared's chiming in again. Drones changed the game for water tower cleaning. Remote job sites, hard to reach in rough areas.
Yep.
30 years ago, people would have laughed if you brought this up. Man, I don't know
Totally.
about 30, probably 5.
They're still laughing.
Yeah,
I don't know what you're talking
I
about.
see people laughing all the time.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, Jared's got his pulse on it, that's for sure. All right, what else do we have here? Is drone cleaning a threat to the window cleaning companies, right? You kind of think about this. I remember having a conversation with a friend of mine, Tim Hazelton, who was behind Apple Wash and the original proportioner in the soft wash industry and all this stuff, right? We go back a long ways. And we were having this chat about how if you could just deliver the right chemical and then use the Tucker Pure Water, you wouldn't need the poles at all. And I said to him, I said, you're right, but keep it down. You know, we're trying to sell poles here. But this is a great way to deliver it. But at the same time, there's, you know, the way I've always looked at anything in business is there's always enough work for everybody. I never feel threatened by anything in terms of like what somebody's doing or what they're not doing. So how does this kind of gel with the typical window cleaner out there that you might be able to work with? You know, in my mind, it's kind of like, well, I do window cleaning and I need a pressure washing guy, so I'm using this guy to do my pressure washing, right? It's just all about relationships. But is it a threat to the traditional or the water-fed window cleaner out there? What's your thought process?
I don't think so. I mean, we're doing mid-rise buildings. So, you know, the guys that are doing rope access cleaning, I think they're the ones that probably feel the most threatened about this. And for us, you know, the drone, we're not doing 25-story buildings. There's a lot of buildings that we do where we call out somebody to do a portion of the building with rope access because it's just too tight for the drone to get into.
Mm-hmm.
So I think ultimately, you know, robotics, AI is a threat to kind of everybody to a certain degree. And that's kind of what we're talking about. And so this really isn't any different than that.
Sure.
But for us, and I think the way the drone cleaning industry is going is it's a symbiotic relationship. You've got the drone guys that, you know, bought the expensive equipment. They're really niche with the touchless cleaning. Right there, they know how to train pilots, you know, not window cleaners. And it's very, very different than somebody who operates a window cleaning company, right? It's a whole different skill. It's a whole different thing to master.
Yeah.
So it's a symbiotic relationship. And I think a lot of people are starting to see that. They complement each other. Whereas if you've got a window cleaner, and how many window cleaners are there out there that do residential or, you know, 1, 2, 3-story commercial buildings? Partner with us and we'll get you into those taller buildings. You can now access those taller buildings, still doing the lower levels, but you can also make money off of the higher floors by contracting us out and marking up a little bit. So it's a symbiotic relationship, and every single building we do, we hire a window cleaner to come out and do the first floor, to do the interior glass, to do the sidewalks.
Sure.
So
sure.
we can't really survive without window cleaners, and vice versa.
It's a very different business model than like a contract cleaner, right? You mentioned pilots. I don't know that people think about that much when they think about the drones, but there's a lot of training in that. The FAA comes into play, right?
Yeah.
Can you touch on that a little bit in terms of like what that looks like? I mean, it's not even generally like on a site. It's not a guy in a drone, right? There's hose, movement, and I don't know the word I'm looking for right now, but somebody to move your hose around at all times because you're focused in the air as the pilot, right? So can you touch on just kind of from a practical sense how that symbiotic relationship works with multiple operators on the ground?
Yeah, so to run a drone cleaning operation, you need at least 2 people, and I've got Josh here, who's our rig master. He operates our rig, knows all of our equipment, and you're working as a team. You know, everybody on your team is equally important. If the pilot makes a mistake, it can impact the rig. If the rig guy is making a mistake and not keeping an eye on the chemical levels or has an issue with the pumps, so you've got a lot of moving parts with that. So the pilots, in reality, flying a drone is very, very simple. Up, down, left, right. You know, if you can play a video game, you can fly a drone. The challenges with operating a drone cleaning company is more about the risk, the experience, because, you know, every job's different, especially when you're using a drone. But then also there's additional liabilities and costs that people don't think about, like insurance. You know, insurance is awful. It's horrible for drone cleaners. So window cleaners don't want to take on that insurance expense when 80-90% of their work is groundwork.
Sure. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Okay, so what is your relationship like with other window cleaners? You know, you kind of touched on that a little bit, but you know, do you have any specifics? Do you have guys that you work with that are kind of your go-tos? What kind of background details do you have for us on that front?
Totally. Yeah, so last year, I think most window cleaners in Colorado were kind of skeptical about us. You know, people started hearing about us, and our relationship with window cleaners last year was much different than it is this year. I think, you know, a lot of people were threatened by it. Now people are kind of warming up to it, and I think most window cleaners are like, oh, maybe I should buy a drone, and people are starting to kind of be more opened up.
It becomes a little more obvious that it's a valid tool, but it's not as simple, to your point about multiple people to run it and the licenses and the insurance and everything else. I remember the first time somebody pitched a water-fed pole to me as a window cleaner, and I was working and doing route work in Atlanta, cleaning windows for a company. And a guy walked up to me and he pitched this process where I could clean a window faster than ever with a pole and ultra pure water, and I didn't need soap and I wouldn't need a squeegee. And I was in a parking lot of a Publix, and I remember it, and I just kind of laughed it off. And I was like, that guy's crazy. And I was with, you know, my guy I was working with, and, you know, I think back and it was like, well, that was this guy, Don Shute. Like years later, I put it together, right? And Don Shute worked for years and years in our industry selling water-fed poles. But I remember like this is how I make a living today, right? But at the time I was like, that's ridiculous, right? There's no way. And I just blew it off. And it was several years before I got to the point where I was like, oh, I just saw one. It does work. It is relevant. And then I bought one, and then here I am, right? Kind of developing and pushing the industry in terms of the water-fed stuff. So it just, as things become sort of like natural place within the industry, it becomes more and more accepted that it's a way to do it. And I think the biggest thing for me that I find interesting is you guys are just cleaning glass, right? Yeah. Like in the Colorado market, we don't have mold and mildew and really a lot of dirt, right? So this thing is pinpoint accurate on just trying to clean a glass surface.
That's right. Yeah, glass is just one small part of what you can do with drone cleaning. Most of the guys that are operating drone cleaning businesses are out, you know, in coastal areas cleaning buildings, and it's a whole different process, whole different technique.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, it's interesting to see how things evolved, and you know, our take on it is kind of let the industry grow organically. You know, we're not trying to force drones on anybody. We're not, you know, early on, I think we were all kind of, you know, green and just really just excited about the technology and yeah, this can do everything. And now a lot of the buildings I go to, I just look at the windows and I'm like, we're not gonna be able to do that, or we can do that, and just being a little bit more practical with it, and letting the industry kind of grow organically. And it is, because there's a very viable use case for the tech.
Right. And we were chatting a little bit earlier off record, or outside of the show here, about solar panels specifically, right?
Yeah.
And the idea about cleaning solar panels with drones. Do you think the application is essentially the same? And do you see kind of a crossover? Because I'll be honest, like what I hear and see in the solar world about drones compared to the window world about drones is a lot more kind of like, there's no way that'll even work.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Are there guys out there, that are doing it and cleaning solar with drones? What's been your experience with getting into solar panel cleaning with a drone?
Yeah, there's definitely a huge demand for it. We had somebody call us from, I think it was Wisconsin 2 weeks ago, and they had a rooftop that was just covered in solar panels. There's no other way to clean it safely, right? And it would have been it'd be a huge job for it. It's just like window cleaning. It's the same technique, right? It's the same tools, but it's very niche. Just like building cleaning is very different than window cleaning. I think if you're going to go after solar, we can do it, like with our setup, we can do residential, but we're attached to the drone with an umbilical cord.
Right.
When you're looking at a solar farm where you need to cover a lot of acreage, you want to be free from that. So there's guys that are using agricultural drones, they're repurposing them.
Okay.
But I think the end game for drones and solar is purpose-built drones that are built from the ground up for solar, that can carry the water on board, which is a lot of weight, and also has enough pressure, because agricultural drones are designed to disperse chemical over a wide area. They don't care about pressure. With solar, you need pressure, and you also need a chemical.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
there's drones that are.
How does that all come together is kind of the answer there, right? Yeah, absolutely. Well, good deal. Hey, Peter Cruz chiming in. What's up, Shawn? Hey, buddy, how's it going? Hope all's well down there in New Mexico. Well, looks like we are all out of time. It's 4 o'clock here. Cool. I want to thank everybody for tuning in.
Thank you for having us, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely. Interesting topic. If you guys have more questions, send them in. We'll get you some details and some answers on those things as we move forward.
Yep. Can I do a quick plug too? If you have any questions about drone cleaning, go to our website. It's trydronewash.com, TRY-dronewash.com.
Very cool. Yep. Thanks, Jay. Appreciate you being on the show.
Thank you very much.
All right, guys, take care. Be safe out there.